Hi there FFTCG players, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the first deck list that I'll be posting up for Opus IX. Now Opus IX has been a bit of a mix-up when it comes to the meta and all the things that we're coming to expect for the coming months when it comes to tournament play, etc. Because I think that people underestimated Opus IX pretty heavily when it was starting to be revealed, but as we can already see by a lot of the decks that we're seeing coming out, a lot of people are really excited to use a lot of these cards from Opus IX. And I want to be one of the first people to kind of showcase a deck that I know a lot of people that have been asking me for since Opus II even, and it's a Final Fantasy VIII based deck. Now there are multiple ways that you can play Final Fantasy VIII in this game, certainly now. You can play it Mono Ice, you can play it Ice Lightning, or you can play it Fire and Ice. I've opted for a Fire and Ice build, which I will show to you in just a moment, because I think that it has a certain level of tech that the others just don't have. And therefore, if you want to see what this deck is and how to play it, what cards you're going to need for it, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, don't forget to check out all of the social links in the description box below, including my Discord channel, Twitch channel, and Patreon website as well. So I did want to quickly say a big thank you to particularly my Final Fantasy TCG players fan base, because I've just recently broken the 10,000 subscriber mark, and I have already posted a big thank you video and everything for that. But you guys are what gave me the platform to be able to get to this point. So without you, I wouldn't have the channel that I have now, and I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you guys, and I want to hear from you as to what sort of things you want to see from me in terms of Final Fantasy TCG content, because I most certainly have not forgotten my TCG videos. I may have started to do other things as well as TCG, but I want to make sure and reiterate that TCG is where I started, like to at least elevate my channel and things like that. So I really want to give back to you guys, so please let me know what sort of things you'd like to see from me in the future. So as you can see, I've switched up the format, seeing as I did so a little while ago for my Opus IX review video, and it actually went down very well, because I used the official FFTCG website for that. But now I want to turn attention to FFDecks.com, which is a website where you can build your own decks and just have a massive card database. You get graphics for everything, so you can see the average cost of CP. If you scroll down, then people can comment on it. How many EX bursts are in your deck. There's all sorts of information for you on this website. It's a fantastic site. I've used it since it came out. It's an amazing one, so I really encourage you guys to use it. But as you can see here, this is the Final Fantasy VIII Fire and Ice deck, and I'm going to do a quick rundown of some of the cards and the plays that can be made in this deck. And I've had a little while to experiment with Fire and Ice FF8, but not necessarily this particular build. Particularly the backups are where I'm kind of a bit hazy. So if you guys have ideas on how to improve the backups, then do let me know. But I think that the backbone of Final Fantasy VIII decks is going to be surrounded around Quistis, Rinoa, Squall, which is going to be your sort of ice portion, as well as the Lagunas, because they're obviously more consistency plays, and then Fire brings Zell, Kyros, and some extra tech plays that I think make for wonderful combo plays that you wouldn't be able to do in any other deck realistically. The first card I want to talk about is Rinoa. Rinoa is the linchpin of this deck, straight up. She's very easily killed, which is a problem because she's only 5k, but her effects are gargantuan. The fact that she gets her effects when she comes in or when someone else from Final Fantasy VIII comes in is really magnificent, and the fact you have a choice of them, you can dull something, freeze something, or give something 1000 power on first strike. It enables so many combo plays that you just go off. I debated running 4 CP Snow in this deck, but having tested with a lot of the FF8 cards, you really just don't need him. Primarily on the back of Rinoa. And if you get Squall out, I actually really heavily debated running a 4th copy of Squall, a 2 CP Squall, just for the fact that it can be brought back in by Phoenix and trigger all 3 abilities of Rinoa at instant speed. I thought that would have been pretty immense, but honestly I couldn't figure out what to take out for it, so that might be a play that you guys might be interested in, but Squall is just not self-sufficient enough because this isn't a discard variant of an ice deck, it's a dull and freeze variant. But Rinoa can just set up so many plays, it's insane. So the fact that she's 2 CP means she's resurrectable by Phoenix, who is one of the most important cards in this deck, and the reason that I've gone for Fire. You just have to have 3 of her in the deck. The reason that I've gone for 2 different Lagunas in this deck is because I feel that the 3 CP Laguna that can search for Squall is a really strong setup play if you already have Rinoa out, because it's 5 CP at that point, because the Squall gets cheaper for every FF8 forward you have. So if you have Rinoa out already, so you play Laguna, you could freeze one of your opponent's 2 guys, search for Squall, who is now 2 CP because you have Renoa and Laguna out. Then play the Squall for 2 CP. You could then dull the thing that you froze by playing Laguna with his own effect, and then you get all 3 of Renoa's effects by playing Squall. So you could dull a guy, freeze a guy, and then give the Renoa 1000 power and first strike because she has an easier time attacking, for example. It's just there's a lot of combo potential there. But the 5 CP Laguna can search for any ice forward and is above the curve because at 5 CP he's for 8000 power, but he's also getting you a card to your hand. So technically he's 3 CP for 8k, which is actually quite rare in ice cards. Most ice cards tend to be under curve, and Renoa is a good example of this because the curve tends to be 2 CP is 6k and Renoa is only 5. So, and like Genesis is 4 CP for a 7k, which is normally 8. But Laguna being a 3 CP 8k is actually very strong. So I haven't fully decided which of the 2 Lagunas I really like. So at the moment, I'm opting for one of each. Then with the fire portion of the Final Fantasy VIII engine, having Kyros in the deck as another Phoenix target can be absolutely backbreaking. For example, the fact that Phoenix doesn't bring something back dull like the 7 CP one does opens up ridiculous amounts of combo potential. So if you have a Renoa out, again, like if you have Renoa, you can Phoenix either a Renoa from the break zone. If you don't have Renoa, you can Phoenix Renoa from the break zone, and then because you deal 2000 to your opponent's board, you could give herself 1000 power and first strike, and then that way you can block any 8k guy and still kill it, or you can dull a guy before they go into combat, or you can freeze a guy after they've attacked you. There's lots of little combo potential with that. But with Kyros as well, the fact that he comes in, gives 2000 power, first strike, brave, and haste is actually pretty scary. If you already have another play to come down, then you can just swarm the board with all these crazy things because your Squall should be under the curve, your Quistis is going to be under the curve, your Renoas are going to be like really powerful, Kyros is going to be really powerful. Like you're just going to end up with just loads of these small guys that are doing way more than their CP cost would suggest, and that's what the name of the game is in this deck, is that as opposed to most ice decks which tend to try and bring your opponent's value down, in this deck you're trying to bring your value up. So you're basically just playing loads of small guys that are cheap that can just really just mess up your opponent's board and make your own guys look way stronger than they first appear. Quistis is an absolute linchpin for this deck. She is an EX Burst Searcher, so you look at the top 5 and grab a FF8 forward. There are quite a lot in here. You've got 2 Kyros, 3 Renoa, 2 Laguna, 2 other Quistises, 3 Squalls, 2 Zells, so you've got a pretty heavy chance of hitting one. So you've got, I think there's about 15, so you've got a pretty heavy chance of hitting one there. And then the seed candidates getting 1000 power is only really relevant to Squall. I mean, Zell benefits from it as well, and it does mean that he deals an extra 1000 damage when he comes in, so that is always nice. But the only character that really benefits from it is going to be Squall. But the fact that she's a 2 CP 7k is, again, it's more value, and you're getting way more than you should. Her S ability, you've not got anything in this version of this deck like Yule to look at the top card of your deck to really, like, capitalize on it. You could put that in here instead of one of the EX bursts that I've put in so that you can do that. But the way that I've built the backups is I don't really care what the backups are as long as I get to 5 of them. So then you could do that and just make it so that you've got a more consistent shot when you activate her S ability. But there's a lot of 4 CP forwards in the deck as well, which are the only things that Zalera can't effectively kill. So you could try and gear her towards being able to kill 4 CP guys, because there's plenty of them here. Most of the forwards in this deck are 4 CP, because of Genesis, Last Will, Quistis, Squall. So your chances are you're going to hit something, but if you don't want to leave things to chance and maybe think about putting Yule in the deck, Genesis is just a solid pick all around. Lastwell, Fire and Ice, he's one of the best cards in Fire and Ice. He's absolutely crazy powerful, and he sits alongside characters like Squall and Genesis so perfectly. He also does that extra chip of damage after Rozelle comes in if you need him to. If you're giving your guys first strike, then dealing 1000 damage to something on tap is actually pretty nasty. Then you've got the fire kind of tech plays, which are Cloud and Nail, which are just good cards. There's 24 forwards in the deck. You should hit at least one if you're playing a Nail, and even if you don't, then being able to remove a lot, because a lot of the backups in the deck are enter-play effects backups, so being able to remove them for something useful, and then being able to replay them might be something relevant later into the game as well. Cloud is just a good card. Yeah, we all know this. Cloud and Phoenix have been carrying fire for sets now. So, they're just good, and they're very well worth running. And then Chaos Mobius I put in as a one-off because in Fire and Ice, he's actually pretty amazing. 6 CP, like, if we've used to play, like, things like Zell or Furion who deal combat trick type damage. Like, you'll go into combat, your opponent's not sure whether they can block it, and then they block it and then your guy dies, and then you just play a Chaos Mobius after it and then wipe 2 of their guys out. It could be pretty nasty. And then not only that, because you're playing Fire and Ice CP into it, your opponent discards a card for the trouble as well. So the value ceiling of Chaos Mobius is actually extremely high in the Fire and Ice deck, so I'd highly recommend it. He's like Athena for this deck, but I'm only going with 1 because he's dark and I don't want to clog my hand up too much. As I said, the backup lineup in this deck is the bit where I'm a little bit iffy on it, because Fire and Ice have a lot of really relevant backups, but all of them stick to the board and don't remove themselves. Like, I wanted to put Yotsuyu in here because I thought that it would really help with sort of Squall getting in and dulling something because he dulls on attack. I wanted to put 4 CP Snow in here because, you know, having every one of your characters become Squall and then Squall doubling up on it is nice, but I did think that perhaps it's a little bit too much in that one basket. So I decided against it. So what I decided to go with instead is just heavy EX bursts and triple Sage, so that I can just like get that extra haste in there and just deal the damage as soon as possible. Make it hyper aggro, high EX burst. So Cocytus' EX burst, Jill Navart's EX burst, both of which freeze things. Emperor's an EX burst, which, I mean, Emperor's a less relevant EX burst. VV Black Waltz both deal damage and will ward off early aggro and will make it so that you don't really have to deal with the small guys. You can just dull the big ones. Selfie is a search target, so Selfie will search up either your Squalls or your Zells, which is nice. And then Devout I thought would be a really nice way to either bring back a dead Squall or bring back a Zell and kill something, or bring back a Quistis and then hopefully get more value. Bring back a Laswell, which is going to be crazy value as well, especially if you have a Fire CP open, which you should. Then you've got a lot of potential there, but there's a lot of backups I really wanted to put into this deck, so this is the bit. I mean, you could even take one away as well. I put 17 in here, but I think that you could probably take one of them away either in favour of another summon or another forward, because the summons actually do a lot of work in this deck. As I was saying, going over those summons, these summons are all relevant in this deck, all of them. Zalera deals with practically everything in this deck because you're dulling things so frequently, and it's just obnoxious how much value you can get out of a Zalera. And then Belias is an EX burst draw card, which is great, but it also grants First Strike. And I actually did debate putting the 1 CP Belias in as well, but I think having haste with Squall in particular, or any Squall and Renoa, or anything like that, is actually very relevant. Like, if this is an aggro-based deck, so haste is actually pretty important here. But the 1 CP Belias is also very good here. Glacier, I actually want to put 3 copies of this in as well, because the fact that their guys are dull so frequently means that you can just pick them off with a Glacier, and like, you know, you've got plenty of removal in the deck. So you've got Zell, you've got Chaos, you've got Zalera, you've got Glacier, there's loads, and then you've got all the combat tricks as well that all are relevant, and it just works really nicely. And then Phoenix, like I said, Phoenix enables so many crazy plays in this deck, it's unreal, like just through Renoa and Kyros alone. Renoa is who you pull if you don't have a forward out, because if you don't have a forward out and they go to attack you, you can either resurrect Renoa, and as you can see with the website, you can highlight I'll say you can highlight the characters as well, the cards, so you can look at them, especially on the site as well. But as you can see, Renoa can target herself for the 1,000 power and First Strike, so you can resurrect her, block, give herself, or resurrect her, give herself the 1,000 power and First Strike, block, and then that's going to take out anything that's 8k or less, and then she won't die. And if you do have a forward out that's FF8, then bringing a Kyros in makes it so that you could block even bigger things, or you can still bring a Renoa out, and then that way you've just got, you know, 2,000 power across your opponent's board, and dull, and a body is a lot to get for 4 CP. I actually very heavily considered putting a single copy of Water Porum in this deck, just because if you're playing 4 CP Phoenix, you can resurrect Porum, block with her, Porum dies, the Phoenix comes back to your hand, and then that play on its own is crazy and shouldn't be allowed, because you can just keep resurrecting her ad nauseum until your opponent gets rid of your break zone. So, I mean, I've tried to not rely too heavily on the break zone, so while Phoenix is extremely powerful in this deck, and Devout is really good in here, so I didn't want to go too heavily into the break zone shenanigans because people are starting to run things like White Mage and Mist Dragon to counter Porum, who is very break zone oriented, so you don't want to end up putting too many eggs into the break zone basket, because otherwise you'll end up suffering too heavily to Mist Dragon. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this Fire and Ice Final Fantasy VIII deck. I will leave the link in the description box below for this very deck list that you can see here. And as I said, don't forget to check out ffdex.com because they're a fantastic resource. And if you haven't, I mean, a lot of FFTCG players use it, so if you haven't seen it before, definitely go and check that out. I encourage you guys to check out all of my links in the description box below as well. There are loads of other Final Fantasy TCG content creators out there as well, so I very much encourage you guys to go and check them out as well. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications. So hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.